Hi everyone, welcome to World Changers in Tech. My name is Anna Yukiko Bickenbach, and today I am joined by Jonas Kwaschik from Invisible Foods. Hi Jonas.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to our studio, and just so everyone knows, no one was harmed or is being harmed during this filming. It is Corona time, so we took all precautions necessary to make sure that Jonas is in good hands, and so that's why you guys also see us from a distance today. And Jonas is an expert in product strategy and marketing. And today we're going to be talking about the food waste management, specifically looking at the supply chain. And as you know, all our World Changers in Tech podcasts and videos and events are based around the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And we thought it would be right to obviously talk about SDG 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure, because we're talking about the usage of digital tools, and SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. And since we always want to give you guys food for thought and something to continuously learn about, the SDG goals always have sub-goals underneath them. And our sub-goal that we actually are going to be addressing is 12.3, which is dedicated to food loss and waste. And we're excited to have Jonas with us. And I like to start with a quote sometimes of our individual guests that are here. And Jonas said, maybe no quote, because that way he can kind of explain his mindset and how that works. So why no quote, Jonas?
Yeah, I mean, simply because I'm a very pragmatic person. And I don't really believe so much into this, let's say, theories, or also, let's say, the mind frames. I also don't like to be framed. So in that sense, whenever I'm into doing it, I actually feel the best. So that's why I never had a quote.
But you did bring up one quote that you have on one of your pitch slides
that
you liked.
Oh yeah, we talked before. So it's about the circular economy. And also there, since we talk in the frame of the SDG, for me as an entrepreneur, it's quite important that we talk not only about circular economy, but of course about the circular business models, because just if we want to have something like a cradle-to-cradle approach, still it has to work. Mm-hmm. And that's where the business models come in. And I'm actually very excited about these, we call it invisible heroes, that dock into our approach and actually create something beautiful from things that have been before waste.
So let's go deep dive into that. So tell us exactly, what does Invisible Foods do, which you founded?
Maybe let me explain to you a bit about the name, Invisible Foods.
Yes, please.
So what we do is actually we make lost food visible, because there is quite a very dramatic situation right now. Probably you already heard that around a third of all food is lost, and that is only the food that is lost at the end customer, meaning that in your household you're not using all the food you're buying and then you're just simply throwing it away. But the problem is that is only a small part of what we know. There's a quite bigger part of the B2B steps in this supply chain before actually the food arrives to your home. And there are only predictions right now, or like assumptions how much food is lost there. But at the end, we talk about that basically half of all the food that is produced is not used, is not eaten, is just simply lost. And we want to make this food visible. Mm-hmm. First of all,
may I just interject really quick, because before you came in, we did a little bit of our research. And if you just Google kind of like food waste production globally, the numbers that came out was, let's see here. So it's 1.6 billion tons of food that's actually lost or wasted, and that could potentially feed 3 billion people. And I thought your response to that was perfect, which now kind of goes into the visible foods.
Yeah, I mean, like if you remember back in the days when you have been flying before Corona, and before actually we have been more aware of what flying is doing to the environment. Just imagine you're flying over Europe and you're seeing all the crop fields there. And then imagine that every second field we actually don't need, or we simply waste. And what is connected to that? All the water supply, all the CO2 emissions, all the kind of also lost revenue for a farmer who's then not able to kind of grow on that and have a decent life. So there's a lot of implications about this completely inefficient industry. And part of the problem is simply intransparency. We simply don't know. And in the supply chain, you have multiple actors who are working together. But since the system is so intransparent, like a farmer never knows actually how much demand is there at the market, for example, how much he should grow. He's simply giving it to the next step, which is then, for example, a distributor who's then shipping it to somewhere, to a trader, for example. And as another example, we had a big crisis now when we stepped into the Corona crisis with avocados. Avocados don't have, let's say, the best brand in terms of sustainability. But what happened was nevertheless very dramatic because simply half of all the avocados got lost. There have been like containers, ship containers arriving in the Netherlands with avocados that straight went into the waste disposal.
So into a landfill, like they just got wasted.
Yeah, or like these kind of biogas facilities. So at least there's a bit of usage, but nevertheless you pay for the disposal. So that's also for the trader quite a substantial amount of money that he's losing. And now comes the horrible fact about it. The farmers could simply leave those avocados hanging 6 months longer. Like we could completely prevent that crisis if we could have told the farmer, hey, you know what, why not just keep them a bit longer? We will pay you all the avocados then and not only take half of it, because usually that's what's also happening, that the farmers don't get paid.
In this case, though, why did they get lost? Like what happened?
Because the system is, we compared a bit like back in the Columbus times. Because when Christopher Columbus actually went with a ship somewhere, he just loaded the whole ship with spices and then he went somewhere else, let's say Europe, and then he unloaded there and like he sold everything that he got there. But he didn't have any order before. He just simply kind of filled the whole ship and then he went to Europe. And this is the same thing that happens right now. All the traders, they just, let's say, grab all the supply they can get because they think they can sell it.
Or if it's a good price,
yeah,
then they'll probably just grab it for the best price.
But then things are cancelled, for example, for reasons that, in this case with Corona, it was simply hotels and restaurants.
Right.
They don't need things for breakfast, for example. Imagine delicious breakfast with an avocado. And this was not needed anymore, so half of the supply was gone. All the orders have been cancelled, but the traders still had all the produce in their warehouses, and they had to get rid of it. Also, warehouses cost money, so they simply dumped it.
Yeah. I mean, which is really interesting too when we think about individual consumer mind. Like you just think about the things you personally would shop for or consume, but just as you said with Corona, you don't always reflect on the extreme waves that it makes through a whole industry. So like, right, restaurants and hotels, they weren't serving breakfast anymore. Everything was shut down, and that makes part of a much bigger consumer market, or I guess, or demand market when these ships, I guess, come in. So, and
this is a very difficult topic because also how can you actually solve it if there's like this kind of, let's call it crisis, a Corona crisis really that is unforeseen. No one could see that this will happen. So if avocado farmers, for example, you could not inform them upfront, hey, don't produce so much avocados because we will have Corona crisis. This is impossible. Right. So you would need to solve this by trying ad hoc, find new buyers for that. Or just make something else with it.
Distribute it differently.
Yeah, or like make a product that lasts longer simply, right? But we also have quite a big topic with regular food waste, which is happening when you are simply processing fresh food and making something else out of that. For example, chocolate.
Yeah.
When chocolate bars are made, usually it's not that the brand is always owning the factory to produce the chocolate, but there are simply chocolate producer factories, and a brand is going and saying, hey, I want to have a chocolate with this recipe. Here are the ingredients. Please do a chocolate with that. And you pay actually these machines running per second. So you produce, let's say, 100,000 chocolate bars. And then this order or this contract is fulfilled and you switch simply the recipe. And what happens is simply there's chocolate still in the machine. So the next recipe
that is left over from whom? Okay.
Exactly. And this is often, I mean, it's not that people don't value chocolate. Of course, the producer and the factory is saying like, oh, Jesus, there's so much chocolate. What can I do with it? We heard about cases where these producers then simply kind of melted the chocolate again and made like big cubic metered cubes out of that and stored it in a warehouse. And they try to sell it in their own shops. Like, you know, it's a shop where you can buy chocolate very cheap because of this kind of big chunks of chocolate. But all of this was on an industrial scale, and there was just not enough kind of demand to buy this kind of pieces of chocolate. So what you actually need is to make a new product out of these rests of chocolate, of these kind of leftovers. And there are beautiful companies. One of our partners is called Rettergut, and they actually did exactly that. They made a cereal bar where you can actually put little pieces of chocolate on top. It's not important that's the whole kind of intact chocolate bar, but little pieces. And that definitely gave this chocolate a second life.
Well, I was going to say there's a lot of it just reminded me of Willy Wonka scenario where who doesn't love chocolate? And I'm sure everyone just right now at the topic of chocolate and how can we deal with it went, wow. I actually worked at a food rescue company from Finland. And one of the issues some of the companies had who also produced candies and sweets is they had an expiration date, right? So that's another phase that comes onto it is if you can't even produce it adequately enough before or reuse it, then it just there's a time stamp on it and people feel like they need to throw it away.
Yeah, I mean that raises also another discussion because we in between we thought like if you have so much fresh produce somewhere, and like with the avocados the biggest issue was the shelf life because they would maybe last still like a week or two, but for supermarkets that's not enough. They need like longer shelf life to sell all of it because they can also not sell, let's say, 1,000 avocados per day in one supermarket. They need a week for that maybe. So that's why they canceled the orders because they said simply, hey, the avocados, they will not last long enough. So we cannot use them.
Which is an issue for fresh foods versus, let's say, yogurt, for example, that can definitely be extended in terms of expiration date and maybe be sold again. Okay, so looking at, now we have these examples about avocados and chocolate. Where do you guys come in?
So we come in actually at a very early stage because, as I said, we want to make the lost food, first of all, visible. That means we want to get the data. Because without the data, we actually cannot really work on solutions. Because right now, simply no one knows where this lost food is happening, where it's occurring in the supply chain. There are only like, kind of assumptions about it, or you have single cases, as I mentioned. But basically, you have to look at almost every company that is processing food or trading food to see how much food waste they have. We want to collect the data automatically. So you have an API connection, you're actually getting the data automatically. You have a real-time dashboard to monitor what is happening with the produce. So if you can sell it, if it's wasted, or, and that's our second step, we actually give it a second life, which means we want to make new products out of it. We actually believe by just finding a new buyer, that could even lead at the end eventually to some just switch of one order against another. So because this stranded food, of course, is a bit cheaper, right? Like you get it to a much discounted price. But we actually believe it's the best to actually make new products and create an additional demand for it. Because you simply add also value to the product. Like let's say you, for example, from fresh tomatoes, you make ketchup. That's also another invisible hero. So it's a real story, which are doing that. And it's amazing. Like not only the ketchup is super tasty, but making ketchup is the most obvious thing you should do with tomatoes. So that is the second step. And we simply connect we call it waste streams. So it's actually food that normally would get wasted. And we connect it to startups. And this is surplus food that happens on a recurring basis. So you can actually plan your production with it. Startups get it to a better price. So they have a bit of a benefit in the beginning because they don't get the high volume discounted prices like other big corporates would get. And at the end, of course, we want to promote good. So that means we give a certification. We simply monitor who is doing what against food waste. and we give it a stamp that this is reducing food waste and that we are actually monitoring if they hold accountable to these quality standards. The UN, of course, is also trying to really implement solutions in that area. And what they are doing is kind of very complementary to what we are doing, because they, for example, they are launching right now a blockchain. Because the whole process, you can imagine, is about track and trace,
right.
It's about traceability. What is happening with this one produce, let's say the one potato or the 1 kilogram of potato that is harvested, what is happening with it? Where is it going? In which steps? What is produced out of it? Is it ending in a food waste or not? In a trash bin or not? And so with the blockchain of the UN, we actually have a great partner, but they cannot run anything commercially because they are UN. They are not allowed to even make money, right? They want to have the data. They want to support these kind of platforms like us with data also. So we can hook into that blockchain, get the data out of it, and also, of course, store data in it. And our customers, for example, like a trader, has then the possibility to simply, first of all, they are reducing costs they are having anyways. These are the disposal costs. And they are making more revenue because they simply still sell like their merchandise that before was simply ending in the trash bin.
But to also, basically, to summarize it really quickly, you guys have a 3-step kind of process or goal ahead of you. The first is kind of data analysis, collecting data, then analyzing it, then getting the partners on board that could do something with the food waste where you know where it is happening, to give the invisible foods basically a real visibility, or I guess invisible heroes. And then to top it off, whilst working with the United Nations to certify whoever is part of the process, because for those that don't know what blockchain is, it's basically like a timestamp that allows people via technology to track back and have transparency on the data, that all the partners are actually actively, or what's the best way to say, like transparently linked together and working together.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, blockchain is always interesting because it was a big hype. I mean, hype in a sense a few years ago. And there's actually very few examples sometimes of how they can use blockchain to really create impact. So this is a really great example.
I think blockchain is so fitting here, talking a bit about technology now, simply because what a blockchain does, it allows you to decentralize your business models, or you decentralize actually the ownership of the data.
Yeah, who's verifying it.
Exactly. So you can have multiple actors. It could be us, it could be other platforms, could be like the various country programs, because the different nations have different programs how to reduce food waste. Also in Germany, we have one that also wants to cut food waste by half until 2030. So you allow all of them to tap into that, but nevertheless, you have trust with each other. You trust that no data can be altered in a way that there could be some fakes happening or like any kind of fraud, because it's a blockchain enables you to be sure that no one can actually write into the blockchain things that are not true, simply. So for us, it's an amazing kind of setup in terms of the different roles of this whole model.
And so now when we talk about this, though, what came for Invisible Foods? What came first? Was it the blockchain project with the United Nations that you guys became aware of, and then you said, oh, look, we could do something cool with them and do this? Or was it, because I wanted to ask this earlier, what instant did you have, whether it be a conversation with a now co-founder, that you guys were like, this is a problem and we need to find a way to solve it?
Like, we started the whole thing very pragmatic, or like you could even call it a bit naive, but that was deliberately chosen to be that approach of us. Like in the beginning, we simply wanted to do more with impact, because our background comes from being a digital product studio. So we are very experienced in building digital products. And then we said, like, okay, let's maybe find a topic where we can really make a change. And I had this amazing colleague, or he's now also the co-founder of Invisible Food, Nicholas, and he's actually a chef. He learned to be a chef in a really great restaurant, and he also already has been running other food startups. For example, creating a liquor, very special one actually. You should definitely try that.
A liquor or licorice?
A liquor.
So alcohol, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. It was a very special plant from South America. It's called Faraday. And so I had there this guy who was so passionate about food. And then we said, okay, we want to really test an approach, which is we give us 3 months to just explore the field. From the 3 months, okay, it took us at the end, I think 6 months. But what we did is we simply started to talk to, I wouldn't say everyone, but we basically tried to really get all the different known actors in that field, experts together. And by doing that, we even became the connector between them. Because we talked, for example, to the guys who are already collecting data, but we figured out that they only have data from the end customer because they run panels in households. And also our government is using the data, but they don't have anything else, and they wish they would, but they don't have any means to access this data because it's a huge industry and a huge market. You have to talk to each player individually. And
it's very internationalized, right? Yeah. It's so globalized, and there's so many countries. So
Then we simply went to an event and we met there a lady from the UN, and she was very, let's say, excited when we told them, hey, we want to approach this problem with impact entrepreneurship. Like, we simply want to develop a business model. And she said, like, oh, that's exactly what we want to have as partners for our blockchain. We need people who are actually helping us rolling it out by giving also business opportunities to customers in that. So that was very interesting. And through that, we met people from the Netherlands who are already into this research of how actually and where the food waste occurs in the supply chain. They work for the UN, basically. And with them, we partnered, and that are our third co-founder, so to speak, in the whole founding process. And they have been traders. They simply know exactly how this trader world looks like. And we got very, very valuable insights, actually, for what is going on there, and also what would be a good offer for a trader in that aspect. So that means, we talked to a lot of people, and in the beginning we thought, like, reducing food waste, we maybe have to talk about data for sure, but maybe we really have to develop a solution to weigh waste at home. And then we realized maybe it doesn't have to be precise, exact to the gram. It's okay if I just count trash bags, because then I would know, okay, now I have more trash bags, and I went shopping, let's say, more often or less often. For example, my assumption would be, if you go very often shopping, like let's say 2 or 3 times a week, you don't waste so much food, because you not buy like a lot of stuff with a lot of plans, but it's like plans in the future that you want to cook something. But you actually only buy the stuff you want to maybe cook today or tomorrow. I
compare that a little bit to like a college refrigerator or a big American refrigerator, where if you have a certain lifestyle, maybe, right, with a small refrigerator, you're only going to buy perishable for a few days because not more is going to fit into it. And with a large one, you can just like bunker hordes of food. And then, yes, that's true. Yeah.
So, but at the end, we realized that it's too fuzzy for us. Like, we could run like campaigns to educate people what to do with their food at home, so it's not getting wasted. But we thought, okay, this is better, let's say, situated at our government, which have the funds, which run these campaigns. Right now it's called Zu gut für die Tonne, for example. And we recently had a campaign week actually for that in Germany. But we want to go there where we even don't know how worse it looks like. So that's how we came up with Invisible Foods, and then said, okay, we go to B2B. We try to really address it with a business model. Because
you saw that a larger impact could actually be made if you're looking at the supply chain. Because, there's been a lot of things enacted, I think. There is a lot of focus also on the consumer side to educate them, to change behavior and things. So that's amazing. So where are you guys right now? What would be, now I'm saying end goal of 2020, which, with Corona, things were probably a little bit more difficult. But where do you guys see yourself by the end of this year, of things that you can say you guys been able to like accomplish as a team or getting further on the product?
I mean, right now we are in the phase of building pilot cases, which means a pilot case for a waste stream that leads to a new product. We're doing this with Rettergut together, but also a pilot case for a data dashboard with a big trader who will actually kind of prove that what we find out there will really save him money. So we are still in a very early stage, and of course we also have to look into fundraising because we have big plans for that, and building this product will also cost some money, but at the end actually it doesn't look so bad compared that we are in this big crisis. Like, of course it's not easy to raise funds right now because everyone's like, yeah, first of all, the year's over, but secondly, I mean, we don't know how the world will look like tomorrow. So how can we actually know what is a good startup idea or how risky it is to invest in you? But we are also not a VC case. We are not this case where you can make like, I don't know, 100 times fold money out of your investment, because we do impact business.
Yeah, so it's impact. Let's look at the impact VCs. You know, I mean, they might not get the grass returns of like a classical VC, but I think nowadays there's plenty of people just looking for impact, and they have plenty of funds to give. So if they're listening.
And that's a different game, because like an impact business, I would say we have quite a big leverage.
Yeah.
Like we can actually achieve a lot with software, with data. And I mean, there are all these fancy, let's say, technologies attached to it, right? We talked about blockchain. There is artificial intelligence involved to predict actually what we will have in waste in the next year. And I can tell you, it is machine learning, but it is also what the traders already secretly know even. But now we can actually prove that with data, because what they know is like, yeah, in the March, we always have a bit of oversupply. We actually know this. But we cannot do something with it because we're not the ones who are creating startups with it.
Right.
But if we have, let's say, transparency throughout the whole supply chain in terms of what is happening with the waste, we can actually predict that. And all the talks we had, there's right now really a great rising awareness of this topic. Even bigger brands really work on it, also supermarket chains. Like, for example, Schwarzgruppe, but we even talked to Coca-Cola, to McDonald's, like to really a lot of companies who really have a mindset for that. Now the question is only how to really implement first prototypes. And once again, I can say there are like hubs or maybe also regions. For example, in the Netherlands, there is quite more openness to it than we experienced so far in Germany, but simply because Netherlands, they are just the champions in agriculture and also trading with agricultural produce.
While I was researching a little bit of the topic and supply chain management, one interesting question that did come up is, how do you, I mean, the best way or the only way to change or to create impact sometimes is to be able to change someone's behavior or how they think, and whether it is an individual consumer at home. But the big question is, how would you change, as you said, people that, if you want to implement the prototype, is getting these actors, the different stakeholders in the supply chain, to think alike and say, yes, I want to be part of reducing the supply chain. What do you think? How can we change that behavior that they join?
First of all, it is a B2B topic, so it's not so much about style, brand, etc., these kind of things, but it's really about hard facts. And we do have hard facts about it. So that's the beauty of it, because we can really say, for example, a trader normally has an average around like 300,000 euros in disposal costs per year. Imagine he's reducing that by 25%. That's already quite a substantial amount of money he could give even us to run the data service for him. So this simply has to work for each step. And this is also making me kind of optimistic, or also very excited that we have there quite a great idea, because we connect making or like improving the business of people by having a good impact.
And I hope that maybe when we have you in the studio again, maybe next year or in a few years, we could actually, you can tell me, yeah, we were able to allow, you know, Farmer X from wherever to keep his avocados on longer because the technology's gotten so far along. We don't need to pick things and then throw them away along the chain. Cool. Let's look at, just really quick, I mean, you said AI, blockchain. Is there any other tech that you find interesting now in the food space, that like future trends when it comes to use of tech and food waste?
I mean, I learned a lot in this year. So I can name a few that I found very interesting. I learned so much, for example, about how you actually grow food. For example, precision farming. Like I never knew that this is a thing. I never knew that you can actually look from space on your field through a satellite and then optimize it based on the imagery you get from satellites. Yeah. But I also heard like quite interesting stories about it, why it's not yet there. Mm-hmm. Like for example with drones.
Yeah,
in
drones
Germany,
is a big one. Mm-hmm.
you cannot fly them because you're not allowed to fly them out of sight. So a farmer has to like go around a lot with the drones, and it just kills
like someone in Minnesota. He probably just can't.
Yeah.
You know, if he's standing there, he's got huge, massive areas. But yeah, so that's like regulatory restrictions or something, right? Yeah. Okay, so drones in space but precision farming.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'm very excited about, also let's say personally because I even tried it, is indoor farming, like this kind of urban farming that can happen. What we know in Germany with InFarm, for example.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just very beautiful cases because at the end, yes, we want to avoid all different types of pesticides. We want to go circular. I mean, also Berlin has great examples of these kind of circular fish tanks combined with growing, for example, vegetables or herbs on the roof then. So this is amazing, and I think we need more of it because nevertheless the future will be very much an urban future. Mm-hmm. So the more we can grow vertical, the better.
Yay! So, dear Jonas, I think we've learned quite a bit today from you regarding food waste management, and thanks for summarizing everything up and telling us about invisible foods. I have a little quick fire where I'm going to ask you 10 questions. I know you're not prepared for this because you didn't know this was coming. But I have 10 questions for you, and just answer them as freely as you like.
Okay.
Okay? Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite vegetable?
Tomato.
Favorite dish, since we're talking about food?
Pancakes.
Ooh. Favorite tech gadget?
That's a tough one.
Surprisingly,
AirPods,
a lot of people.
AirPods Pro. I really like them.
Surprisingly, a lot of people like get stumped on that because they start thinking, and I think there's just so many gadgets, and they have
exactly.
they're like, oh, which one is my favorite? Favorite or best animal you would like to cuddle? It could be any animal. It doesn't have to be cuddleable, as long as you want to cuddle
it. Teddy bear.
Okay. A big brown bear.
I have no teddy bears at home because of my kids. So.
Okay. The season you like most?
I like fall.
Fall. Okay. Yeah. Personal hobby besides quotes?
Cooking.
Okay. If it wasn't Corona, a country you would like to go to?
Oh, there are so many. Let's pick Slovenia. I think completely underrated. Slovenia is amazing.
Totally, yeah, I completely agree. If you could meet anyone right now to further the business of invisible foods, to like push that impact, is there anyone you can think of that you're like, this person would really?
I would actually meet with the person who implemented the supply blockchain of Walmart.
Okay, so anyone listening right now, if you know anyone did the supply blockchain for Walmart, let us know, and we'll put you in touch with Jonas. Cool, that's cool. What's your Corona hack that keeps you motivated? Have you found like a good hack?
I mean, I'm a bit in a baby honeymoon right now. I have a small baby at home, so that definitely motivates me a lot because it also needs me in the morning very early. And beside that, I actually think Corona told us also a lot what we are missing, and that actually brings us to great, to the best sides of humanity, maybe like feeling connected, reaching out to your friends, staying in touch, although it's hard right now. So actually that this is possible, and what actually happened through that, all the good talks you had, all the kind of appreciation when you could meet under certain measures, that gives me hope that afterwards we might be even having a better version of our society than before.
Okay, so everyone grab a baby, it'll give you hope. I mean, but it's very true. There's a lot of opportunities, I think, and a lot of things we see through this crisis. So what would be a goal for 2021? It can either be business or private, whichever one you'd like to share with us.
I mean, we definitely have the goal to release 30 startups with a product actually made from our waste streams in 2021. So I would think this is already a pretty good goal. And of course I have others, like for example, finding a kindergarten for my kid because it's really hard in Berlin. Actually also finding a flat. That's also one of the serious things that I'm bugged right now because it's hard in Berlin.
Right, yeah. What area?
I'm not so picky. I'm not so picky.
Okay, so somewhere in Berlin, but yes, we know what that's like in Berlin, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, those are good goals. So we'll see, like I said, next time maybe we talk. We'll see what progresses you guys have made, and really exciting what Invisible Foods is doing, and looking forward to hearing more from you guys in the future. And big thank you to you for coming into the studio under these very precarious circumstances. And we will be putting on our masks right now. So thank you for joining us today, Jonas. And I think we can wave to our video audience. And goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Tschüss.